Today is Thursday, October the 22nd. It's morning in Los Angeles and it's morning in America. I am your host, Casey Phoenix, and this is my morning political thought. Of course, I'm going to get the social media and side news stories out the way first. Social media, thepurpleelephantshow.com, main podcasting platform, The Purple Elephant Show on Parler, on Instagram, facebook.com/The Purple Elephant Show, on Twitter at RealTPES. And if you are watching this on BitChute, YouTube, or Dailymotion, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, followed by the notification bell for YouTube. That way you will know when I upload new episodes to the platform. As for BitChute, when I upload it, sometimes the episodes post right away on BitChute, and sometimes it may take 24 hours because their upload process is a little bit different from the other websites. So if there is a particular day during the week where an episode isn't up, let's say by 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, then more than likely the episode hasn't processed yet on the BitChute side. So you may want to check YouTube or Dailymotion. Or you can just go to thepurpleelephantshow.com and you can listen to the podcast. All right. Side news stories. No October surprise is one of the things that's being brought up. Is saying potential bomb shells turn into duds this election year. I'm not really going to go into this article. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that this is my opinion on this. We have one side, which is Biden. Any type of quote unquote bombshells that come out, the press doesn't want to cover it. So they pretend it doesn't exist. Hear no evil, see no evil. You know, deaf, dumb, and blind. On the other side with President Trump, all of the people are like, okay, we've heard it all before. Either the media's lying or the media's lying. So anything that comes out related to President Trump on his side, all the people who support Trump are just like, we're over it. And I believe the general energy for everybody on all sides is let's just get to the election. Let's get it over with. Let's go and vote so we can get this out the way. We already know who we want to vote for, even though the debate is tonight. I honestly don't believe the debate will make that huge of a difference. I really, really don't. Unless something crazy happens with Joe Biden or President Trump, and I mean way out in left field. I honestly don't believe the debate tonight is going to make that much of a difference. And the way that they're trying to set up the debate now, if I were President Trump, I wouldn't have done it. I would have just canceled and said, hey, until you do better with your rules, I'm out. and done that. So yeah. As for other news, which this is something that also isn't a big news story. It says new voters give hope to Trump campaign. Trump campaign officials are counting on Republican voter registration gains in key swing states and a massive ground game that has volunteers knocking on 3 million doors per week to overcome Democrat Joe Biden's lead in public polls in the final 2 weeks of the race. In Florida, Republicans' aggressive voter registration operation has narrowed Democrats' advantage to 134,000, the lowest in more than 30 years and down from the 327,000 in 2016. The Republican Party added 50,000 votes in the final 2 weeks alone before registration closed on October the 5th. I'm not going to continue to read this with all of the other numbers. I'm just going to tell you what my opinion is on this. This is something that is common sense. There were a lot of people who were uneasy about President Trump in the 2016 election. There were a lot of people, and they didn't vote for him. Or there were people who voted for Hillary, but then they changed. Brandon Strzok if I'm not mistaken, is one of them. He voted for Hillary, but then now he's changed. He started the walk away movement. There was someone else who one of high profile in the, I guess, talk media industry, who voted for Hillary, and now they're voting for Trump. So and this is something that is very common now. And then there were people who just didn't vote at all, where they just were like, okay, I'm not voting for Hillary, I'm not voting for Trump, because Hillary, I don't like her. Trump, I don't know what he will do because he hasn't been battle tested and truly vetted because he's not a politician, yada, yada, yada. So they just didn't vote. But now, in 2020, after 4 years have passed, they've seen the president's track record. They've seen what he's done. And they have seen that he's kept his promises. And I believe that is why more people will come out for the president than before. So this thing about new voters give hope to Trump campaign, that is a given. And there's another thing, and I said it before, I'll say it again. I mentioned it in my morning political thought probably about maybe 2 weeks ago, give or take, where I said, don't assume all Democrats are voting for Biden. It isn't like a primary here in California where I had to change my registration from, because I was planning on going independent, but to vote in the Republican primary, independents are not allowed to vote in the primary. So I had to change to Republican. But when it comes to voting in the general election, you don't have to change what you're registered as. If you are a registered Republican, you can still vote for a Democrat. If you are a registered Democrat, you can still vote for a Republican for president in the general election. So don't assume that all Democrats are voting for Biden. And I have a very strong feeling that there will be a lot of Democrats who will go into that voting booth where no one can see them and then click on President Trump. Just like when it comes to voting for President Obama, millions upon millions, I believe, I don't know the number off the top of my head, I believe it's between 6 and 8. But I know it's a ridiculous amount of people. Millions upon millions that voted for President Obama voted for President Trump. I'm one of them. So with this, not only do you have people who voted for Hillary last time, but may vote for Trump this time, but also you have people who didn't vote at all in the last election because they didn't like the choice of either of the candidates. And now they may vote in this election. And they're mentioning this in Florida where they're saying that the Democrats have the advantage of 134,000, the lowest in more than 30 years, down from 327,000 in 2016. Well, even though it was 327,000 advantage for the Democrats, President Trump still won Florida in 2016. So this thing, new voters give hope to Trump campaign, it's not necessarily gives new hope. It's just kind of a given. You just know these things that of course he's going to pick up new voters. That's a given, not just by registrations, but just by his actions where people are like, you know what? I've watched what he's done over 4 years. I didn't vote in the last election, but I'm definitely voting in this election. Or I voted for Hillary in the last election, but I've seen what he's done. I'm going to vote for him in this election. So it's common sense in my eyes. All right. Now, this is something that I believe is for show. I have to go to the article right quick. Okay. So the GOP is pushing for an amendment to the Constitution for 9 justices only on the Supreme Court. I'm going to read the article. It says Republican senators are rallying around Senator Marco Rubio's constitutional amendment that he introduced more than a year ago to ensure that there are only 9 justices on the Supreme Court. Adding justices to the High Court has been on the Democratic Party's agenda even before President Trump's nomination of Judge Amy Coney Barrett, Mr. Rubio told reporters Wednesday. Some Democratic presidential candidates suggested adding up to 15 justices to the Supreme Court, swamping the 9 members the court has had for 150 years. Senate Judiciary Chairman Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, Republican, urged his colleagues to support the amendment. He said, "I can't think of a more destabilizing event for America than to change the number of justices on the Supreme Court every election cycle." And that's all they have for that article. I believe this is for show. I appreciate the sentiment that they want to get it out and let people know, but where's the support going to come from? And what I did, because I knew the basics of the amendment, but I didn't know the full details. Therefore, I had to go look it up and find it. So this is how this works. With a constitutional amendment, you have to have 2/3 majority vote in the House and the Senate. So you have to have a 2/3 majority vote in the House and the Senate to get this done. It's handled by the National Archives and Records Administration. They're the ones who deal with this. The president has nothing to do with this. This is totally an administrative thing. The president doesn't sign anything. He doesn't do anything. He just pops his popcorn. He sits back and watches the entire process. Maybe he can do some lobbying if he wants to, but really, he has no say, because it's not an executive duty. It's not delegated to the executive branch. It's delegated to the legislative branch. So the National Archives and Records Administration deals with this. All right. If they get the 2/3 majority vote in the House and the Senate, then the National Archives and Records Administration forwards it to the Office of Federal Registrar, or OFR is what they call it, which they deal with the processing and publication. The Office of Federal Registrar sends it to all 50 states, to the governors and so on and so forth. Out of the 50 states, 38 states have to agree to the amendment. So it takes 2/3 vote in the House and the Senate. And out of the 50 states, 38 of them have to agree to the amendment change, ratification, making the amendment change to get that done. I seriously doubt that will happen. If it does, I'd be shocked. I would really be shocked. I'd be happy, don't get me wrong, but I'd be shocked if it happened. I feel it's for show right now because obviously Republicans don't have 2/3 in the House and they don't have 2/3 in the Senate. Next year we'll see what happens, but I just don't see it happening. I really, really don't. So yeah, I feel this is more for show. That's just my opinion. Another side news story. Mitt Romney is not voting for President Trump. Oh, wow. What a surprise. The first time, what he didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. He wrote in his wife's name for president, and apparently he said he will write in his wife's name again for president. I don't know why people give Mitt Romney air. I feel the best thing to do would just treat him as if he doesn't exist. And by treat him, the people I'm talking about, the media and those who work with him. It's just like, okay, fine, you're here. And as for the people of Utah, you voted for that. So that's your mess to clean up. All right, on to my morning political thought. And this was interesting to me. And it was in regards to immigration. So, come to find out, and I didn't know this, lots of immigrants, people who immigrated here, are leaving the country. And I didn't know that. And I'm going to tell you a quick story, too, because part of it is there's no place like home. And a long time ago, I worked at the corporate headquarters of Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines. And I had to help on one of the ships because Royal Caribbean owns Celebrity Cruises. For those who don't know or may not be familiar with cruise lines, they own Celebrity Cruises, and I had to help with one of the ships over the holiday season because they needed someone to help book clients for our passengers for new sailing. So basically, I worked in the sales department on the ship and did that. And I did it for 2 weeks. So I worked over Christmas and I worked over New Year's. And I was on the Constellation of the Seas, which was the Southern Caribbean cruise that sailed out of Puerto Rico. And everything was obviously expense paid, which I loved. They flew me to Puerto Rico, sailed out of Puerto Rico. I stayed on the Constellation for 2 weeks, and it was amazing. But I interacted with people on the cruise ship, and this was almost 2 decades ago. And I had this mentality in my head that everyone wanted to come to America. That everyone wanted to come to America. And for those of you who may not know about cruise ships, a lot of the people who work on cruise ships are usually from foreign countries. They're usually from all over the world. And me having this mentality that everyone wants to live in America, I would talk to people on the cruise ship because usually their contract was 6 months on, 3 months off, or something similar to that. And when I would talk to people, I'm like, oh, so when your contract's up, do you plan on moving to America? And they're like, no. I'm like, oh, okay. And it was, I forgot, one guy was from South Africa, and then I spoke to another person. I forgot what part she was from. She was from somewhere in Europe, and I want to say it was Eastern Europe. And I asked her, I was like, oh, when your contract's up, do you plan on moving to America? And she's like, why would I want to move to America? I love my country. And she said it like she was insulted and stuff. And that experience, and this happened with several people, I probably say maybe 6 to 8, so several in my eyes. People where I asked them, because when I got it from 1 and 2, I was like, you know what, let me just ask a few more and see what their reaction is. And every person I was talking to, they're like, no, I don't want to move to America. And a few of them were like, I love my country, I love where I live. I was like, oh, okay. So that was a wake-up call to me. And this here is a little bit surprising, but at the same time, not so surprising, that people who have immigrated here have been leaving. Some things are related to people being homesick. Other things are related to the changes in policy and things like that during President Trump's administration, because obviously certain things are enforced during this administration that may not have been enforced during the other administration. But I'm just going to read a little bit of this article just to let you guys know what's going on. The rate of growth of immigrant population in the U.S. has slowed under President Trump to an average of 200,000 a year, down from more than 600,000 a year under President Obama, according to a report being released Thursday by the Center for Immigration Studies. Rough calculations suggest it's not just that fewer people are coming. Nearly 1 million immigrants appear to have left the country each year in what is known as out migration, says Stephen A. Camarada, the CIS demographer, who wrote the report. A whole lot of people seem to be going home, he said. He said that the most likely conclusion is a Trump effect. The president's policies have blocked some migrants from arriving and convinced others to depart. Even with the slower rate of net migration, the immigration population was almost 45 million on July 1st of 2019, or nearly 14% of the total 328 million. That is the highest rate of immigrants since the 1910 census. All right. I want to skip to something that was interesting to me. There was a poll that was taken in late May and early June, found a surprising surge in support for increased immigration, rising to 34%. That is the highest ever for Gallup data, which dates back to 1965. By contrast, 36% want immigration kept at its present level, and 28% want it cut. So 36% want immigration kept at its present level, 28% want it cut, 34% are in favor of increased immigration, according to the poll from Gallup on that. So a large majority, 77% of Americans said immigration overall is good for the country. Gallup says that too is a record high, which is what I believe as well. I have this thing where, because I've been to a lot of states and I've driven cross country a few times in the United States, and I've seen all of this land that the United States has, I say we have room. And I'm more like, come one, come all. As long as you do it legally, obviously, and as long as you respect that you're moving to the United States. I remember when I worked in real estate, there was this lady who worked next to me. We were subletting in this office building with this insurance company. And the lady who sat next to me worked for the insurance company. And I had seen that on her cubicle, she had up this American flag and some American stuff. And I'm like, wow, she's really for America. And then probably a month or so later, I found out she was an immigrant from Canada. And I asked her, after I found that, I'm like, wait a second, you're from Canada. Why do you have all this American stuff in your cubicle? And she said, that's because I live in America. I decided to move to America. I'm for America. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. Because, some people, they move to America and then they're still waving old flags. And sometimes it's almost like they forget about the American flag, or as if the American flag doesn't exist at all. So I'm all for immigration. I'm all for legal immigration. And we have room. There's only, like I said earlier, there's only 328 million people in this country. That's not a lot. 328 million, that's not a lot. We could easily take on another 100 million people, easily. So I would be open to that. And I want more people to come. And when it comes to immigration, believe it or not, America still has the most generous immigration policy in the world out of all the countries. Because there are a lot of countries that are very funny about people immigrating to their country. They have all types of laws in place. Japan is an example. I brought up Japan before when I mentioned the Olympics. I have a friend who speaks fluent Japanese. He actually speaks Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese, French, English, Spanish. I feel like I'm missing a language because he's in the languages and stuff. But he speaks fluent Japanese. He did everything he was supposed to do, and Japan said, nope, you can't come in. Can't come here. So countries are very funny about who they let in, countries around the world. When it comes to having open arms, contrary to popular opinion or belief or what they may think about the United States is one of the most pro-immigration countries, if not the most pro-immigration country in the world. So, come one, come all. Just do it legally. And that's all I have for my morning political thought. Thank you to everyone who's been supporting the show. I really, really appreciate it. Those who have been watching, those who have been listening, liking, sharing, subscribing, commenting. It means more to me than you will ever know. ThePurpleElephantShow.com, main podcasting platform. The Purple Elephant Show on Instagram, on Parler, at RealTPES on Twitter, Facebook.com/The Purple Elephant Show. BitChute, Dailymotion, YouTube. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, followed by the notification bell for YouTube watchers. Thank you again for your support. Until next time, be blessed.